I believe we're going to be hopping over to our round 2 match here just momentarily. BeanSoldier versus Adrian. Absolute powerhouse players. Cannot wait to see how this one plays out.
This is about to be one of the most exciting matches of the day, and it's only round 2.
That says a lot about the event, that in round 2 we are having such an amazing match already. And it looks like Adrian's going to start it off with a Toxeon to burn for 1. That Thunder Elestral, just I am the personal champion of Toxeon from my time in the Elestriad this past season. I absolutely love this little Scorpion, and I hope more and more people start to see how good he really is with Thunder kind of taking those kneecaps, as it were.
He's very powerful, and specifically a card that it feels bad to shield. It's difficult to remove. And we also see Adrian set 1, and I believe we've passed over to Josh, who...
Yeah, and...
there is that brand new Shattered Stars Eddie.
Yeah, Ed and Edward, as it were. Good old Eddie coming down, gonna be able to put that Toxeon in defense to attempt to clean it up here. Looks like Adrian's not gonna answer the Eddie. Makes sense. It's still pretty early on. Don't want to blow your back row too early. With that said, BeanSoldier also has 2 sets, so he's bound to have something that he can use to try and kind of clean up here. Looks like Adrian's set was actually a Thunderstorm, a card we've seen popping up a little bit more here since the limiting of Lavalith, being able to clean up certain back rows just quickly and easily by expending those 2 Thunders.
Yeah, Tsunami is a huge hit as well with that Thunderstorm. That could have been an incredibly valuable card for BeanSoldier, and it's simply gone.
Yeah, being able to tank it, but it looks like Tsunami probably wasn't going to be too effective against this Galaxy.
Yeah,
coming down and immediately puts that Eddie to 1 attack as well. That is going to be absolutely killer. But as always with these Galaxy swings, you have to wonder, does your opponent have that Gorgon set? And it looks like he does.
And there it is. Yeah. And so Galaxy is going to go down, and now we are looking at an empty board for Adrian. I believe, thought maybe there was 1 set, but looks like we are totally clear. Josh can do truly whatever he wants to do this turn, which is a terrifying prospect.
Especially for someone like Josh. Also, on top of that, we've got the Funny Bunny Astrabbit coming down here. Going to be able to let BeanSoldier absolutely just gain its advantage here. Looking at the top 3 of his deck and being able to choose any of them to add to his hand. That is absolutely going to be killer. Notably, the Astrabbit coming down into attack mode here, meaning he's looking to push some advantage with it.
There's absolutely no reason for him to not be a bit greedy and put that rabbit into attack, being able to swing for 2 completely not contested by Adrian.
Absolutely. And if he happens to be setting another Tsunami in that back line, that can actually be used very defensively with a properly enchanted rabbit here. Being able to swap it to defense and on an attack declaration, even if your opponent's Elestral is properly enchanted, to be able to just tank that hit.
Yes, it's really cool to see Tsunami used in so many different ways. And we see a resting come down from Adrian.
Absolutely killer. That is going to help clean up the board. Looks like he's going to opt to take the rabbit here. Not going to risk that Tsunami blocking a real push. Followed by a Cryo Blast. Oh my gosh. Absolutely clean up the board with that one. BeanSoldier with just 1 set is going to be looking at an Eddie out of Adrian coming down here. Obviously no effect since there's nothing really valuable to swap here, but he is going to try and swing in with that Eddie, and it looks like BeanSoldier is going to take the damage. Spirit count wise, they are still looking pretty even. Adrian down a little bit, but he does have the board presence now to back it up. It looks like BeanSoldier is going to develop the Foamy here, being able and follow it up with a Cryoblast. It was a bluff set by the looks of it.
Double Cryoblast.
Oh, absolutely insane. And now Foamy going to be able to poke in for 1 and also threaten to develop something really powerful out of BeanSoldier's deck if it goes down by battle. That Foamy can hit a Galaxy, that Foamy can hit a Mustache, just absolutely versatile card. It could even get something like an Eddy if it wants to go offensive as well.
Yes, Foamy is one of those cards that it can just sit there because people are afraid of it. And if it does, like you said, we could be looking at those 2-drop water cards that we were talking about before coming out, or Foamy could just sit there and be intimidating.
We're going to see another Toxeon get developed here and burn BeanSoldier for 1 yet again. Just like that, the Scorpions are putting on some real pressure overall.
And this is such a back and forth game. They have been so neck and neck. It's been, oh, is Josh about to get the advantage? He's got 2 on board. No, Adrian is able to completely clear out this board and still keep things pretty tied up in spirits. And I love back and forth games of Elestrals like this.
Absolutely. Well, the Toxeon is going to walk over the Foamy. I think BeanSoldier there is looking at an Eddy potentially to get aggressive on this, to be able to put that Toxeon to defense, but he might still go for something more defensive like a Misenchanted Galaxy, or not even Misenchanted actually. There's no attack position Elestrals to threaten it at this stage. He could just properly enchant it. Or to go real defensive and he could put down one of the big crab, the Mustache there. BeanSoldier taking a while to think over this, but it looks like he is going to go for the Eddy, being able to swap that Toxeon to defense, allowing him to get aggressive on it next turn.
Yeah, I think that with those 2 back row set over on Adrian's side, Josh really had to think about what are we going to bring out? What are the answers that Adrian could have to what I send out?
Yeah, the Eddy is definitely one of the more safe options, but it looks like it's going to get a very aggressive option next to it with the Viserys. That full art Viserys, absolutely incredible development there. And if this lands, then BeanSoldier might have the pressure to just kind of snowball this game out of control. I imagine Adrian has to have some kind of an answer here for it, even if it's a suboptimal answer like a Tsunami, just something to stop this attack from going through. It looks like it's going to be a Shield of Achilles, which doesn't really feel the greatest overall here, as that does put the Viserys back in the hand to where it can be a threat later, but hopefully by then he can find some way to kind of answer it. The Eddy is going to still walk over the Scorpion though and kind of clean up the board.
Yes, and like you said, that Viserys is in hand. It is an imminent threat. It's something that Adrian has to have an answer for, which Galaxy's coming out.
Oh, immediately going to be able to answer that Eddy, and BeanSoldier not having the back row to answer it this time. It is going to be a safe development too. So that whale is currently a 5-2, absolutely massive. And on top of that, just kind of plays really well into almost every back row in the game, outside of specifically Gorgon's Gaze, which we have already seen BeanSoldier fire once.
Yeah, we did see the 1 Gorgon's Gaze, and this is an interesting state of the game. There is an earthquake coming out right now.
That's a way to clean it up for sure.
Yeah, we again are still so tied in spirits. What I was going to say is that Adrian may be down in spirits, but he has the board presence. But here we are. Josh was able to completely clear that up, and Crab is coming out.
Crab, absolutely. So it looks like Josh already had the Crab in hand, so that defensive option wasn't on the table for the Foam. Oh, actually, I guess it was, but not ideal still. Regardless, though, that Crab is a 1/6, so it can threaten to swap its attack and defense, if I'm not mistaken there, but the Galaxy is not an answer for it right now either, because if Galaxy comes down, it becomes a 6/1. That thing is going to be very difficult to out overall. And is probably going to take some kind of additional point of interaction here. Looks like Adrian is just going to choose to expend a draw for his turn, giving up that Elestrals cast in order to set an additional 2 back row here.
Wow. Okay, Adrian is not afraid of a Gloombat meta right now.
Absolutely not. But he's also already down to 4 spirits, if that's correct, to where that Josh doesn't really have to do a whole lot to kind of clean this up. Even eating a back row at this stage can absolutely be detrimental to Adrian's spirit count. And it also looks like Josh is going to recast the Viserys, notably misenchanted with the Thunder, so it'll be a 4/2 and not have its swarm effect.
Yes, I imagine that Earthquake got rid of the last few Earth spirits that Josh had, but even misenchanted Viserys is a huge threat.
It looks like both of those attacks did also get through. There's not really an ideal back row there that can solve that, because Tsunami is only going to block 1 damage, which is kind of not really worth it at this stage. Looks like I think he just went for another expend to draw, and yeah, it looks like he's going to scoop it up.
Yep. Wow. And so game 1 goes to BeanSoldier.
Looks like Adrian has already started off with, once again, that Toxion burning BeanSoldier 4/1 the second it comes down, setting a back row and passing. This looks oddly familiar, doesn't it?
I think we've been here before, yeah. And that's a little bit different. We see BeanSoldier bringing out that one of Elechick, going to be searching, who knows, maybe Olympus? Who can say?
Looks like Zeus. Looks like he's gonna be grabbing the Zeus out of his deck. BeanSoldier seems to be leaning more so into the Thunder side of it rather than the Earth side. As we previously discussed in the last round, it seemed like he had burned his last Earth spirits to cast the Earthquake, meaning he might only be on 3 and therefore not on Demeter.
That's true. It's very interesting. I wonder if this was a side deck that we see coming in, or if this is simply just a different shade of this deck that we hadn't seen previously. And we see a crash with the Elechick and the Toxion.
Josh must be very confident that back row can hold his board presence here, but it looks like a Galaxy is going to come down, and unfortunately no real back row can stop this Galaxy at this stage. Gorgons would be the ideal, but unfortunately doesn't have an Elestral for him to get tricked into attacking.
Yeah, we are probably going to see Galaxy connect here, but we know that Josh is running that Water Crab, which is a very scary answer to a Galaxy.
Absolutely terrifying answer to a Galaxy, but also opens up the very interesting tech line of Gorgonsing your own Galaxy in the damage step, or in the battle step there, in order to guarantee that their crab goes back down to a 1 under your Galaxy's 2 to be able to win that combat. It's not a guarantee. Gorgons is actually a very, very powerful card there, but there you have it. There's the crab coming down. It looks like BeanSoldier does have the crab to attempt to answer the Galaxy. We'll have to see if Adrian has the answer here, as BeanSoldier is going to be swinging that crab in.
We do see 3 sets, so it would be cool. Maybe we could see something spicy like that Gorgons, but who can say?
If there is a player that can do that, it would probably be Adrian. He definitely would be aware of that particular interaction. Does he want to take this interaction? And it looks like that's exactly what he's going to be doing.
Wow.
Gorgonsing his own Galaxy here in order for the crab to lose combat to it. Absolutely incredible heads up play from Adrian.
That is so cool. Also, great prediction.
Thank you. With that said, it is going to get past to Adrian. He has the board presence. He has the advantage here. And it looks like that Quackle is coming down. Going to be able to recover back 3 Thunder Spirits too. All those stained glass Thunder Spirits too from Shattered Stars by the looks of it.
Those are absolutely gorgeous. And Quackle being able to come out unanswered by a Gorgons or anything. Quackle in a tackle. Both them and Galaxy going to be swinging directly for 2. And Josh just taking that damage.
I mean, there's no real reason for him to block it at this stage. Any answers that he could put on them is not really going to do a whole lot. Plus, he has the resting on your laurels to clean up the whale after the fact.
Yeah,
absolutely
that'll do it.
Power card. And Quackle being only, I believe, a 2/3 here is going to put him weak to Josh's own Galaxy coming down. But there is the poison-tipped arrow, which begs the question, whale arrow question mark? Though that Galaxy is still a 5/0 under the poison-tipped arrow. Even though poison-tipped will answer it at the end of the turn, Galaxy can still put on its offensive pressure even under it.
This feels really good for Josh. Even though he does lose that Galaxy, it is a very expensive turn for Adrian, and we see a completely cleared board.
Absolutely. Josh there does have 2 back row. You have to imagine that at this stage, some of that has to be live. Adrian going to just take the expend to draw by the looks of it. That's not a good thing. That's not a thing you want to see into an open board state, unfortunately.
In setting 3 back row. So maybe that expend to draw got him what he needed. Again, we have to imagine that some of these back row are live.
And there comes down the Dratagua from Josh. Going to be able to recover back 2 water spirits that he's been having to expend off over the course of the game. It seems that Quackle's not the only healing Elestral that's going to be seeing play here.
Yeah, very interesting to see both of these casters going for sort of these heal type decks maybe in this round too.
Maybe, but it's more so that just the heal options for Water and Thunder specifically are just absolutely powerful. And when most decks can only play 3 copies of Ambro, being able to play a 4th is still really powerful. And there comes the Ash Rabbit trying to dig just for some kind of an answer, but it looks like Josh is firing the Gorgon's Gaze in response.
Yeah, Josh does not want to let Adrian get any sort of card advantage here. So Ash Rabbit is simply just out in attack, vulnerable to whatever Josh might have to answer it this next turn.
And that also is going to keep his Dratagua up for a turn, as Rabbit can no longer just attack over it, which is really notable.
Absolutely.
With that said, it looks like Adrian's thinking over it and is just going to pass it back to Josh here. Josh immediately swapping the Dratagua to defense. Understandable. Yeah. Understandable. But is going to drop the Spectaris. There he is. The big suppressive body. Spectaris being able to suppress anything it goes into combat with, and then gains attack for every card he suppresses. There goes the poison-tipped arrow, going to be able to answer the Spectaris. But unless Adrian has something like a Tsunami to also put his rabbit in defense, this is still going to be a lost rabbit at the end of the day.
Yeah, and really, what are you looking at this next turn? Getting rid of the Spectaris might indicate that we're going to see a Galaxy come out. As we've mentioned, Galaxy hates to see Spectaris coming.
And I'd imagine the Galaxy has to be the answer here, because Dratagua has been put back in defense, meaning that with Galaxy, Dratagua drops to a 1 defender. You cannot really get past the Galaxy at that point. You have to imagine that's what Adrian's thinking, but it looks like Adrian's instead going for a Viserys of his own.
Wow, a very aggressive play here.
Absolutely. Josh only having 1 back row. Viserys can clean up the Dratagua and develop another one if this hit lands. It all depends on whether or not Josh's back row is actually live.
It looks like it might be, and it is a shield of Achilles, which, as we pointed out last game, it's only a temporary solution. This next turn, Josh has to figure out how to answer that Viserys that could be coming back.
But I also have to imagine, while yes, it's an inevitability that Viserys is coming back, whether or not the Viserys is actually going to be able to do anything substantial is up in the air, as I'd imagine that Adrian isn't on a whole lot of Earth Spirits, meaning that the Viserys might have the ability to come down properly enchanted, or those Earth Spirits have to be committed to something like an Earthquake instead. Looks like Josh is going to develop, once again, that stellar funny bunny, the Ash Rabbit, being able to look at the top 3 of his deck and take his choice here.
And I imagine we don't see any answer. No PTA, no Gorgons from Adrian.
Yeah, it looks like Adrian might be on the bit of the back foot here. Josh being able to basically grab whatever defensive option he needs. Also, very notably, has one of his Elestrals in defense for now. Oh, never mind. It looks like Dratagua is going to attack. I was going to say, it seems like he might be trying to play around that Arcolith, but I don't think he cares anymore and is just going to try and get in for that damage.
Yeah, with those 3 back row set, I'm thinking Josh feels pretty safe in his decision to have both of these guys swing for damage here.
That is completely fair. That is completely fair. I imagine Adrian is probably hoping to see the Arcolith here to try and bring himself back into the game. It looks like he's instead going to be dropping the Toxeon once again to burn for 1, if Josh is going to allow that to go through.
Yeah, he considered it, so that makes me think maybe we have a PTA, maybe we have a Gorgon set.
I'd imagine it has to be the Gorgons, because the Gorgons there, you take effectively 1 damage because you're already you are taking the 1 damage off the Toxeon, but if you Gorgons it, you're no longer taking the Toxeon damage, but you are still expending an additional spirit, but you'll be able to also keep a guy up at that point because Gorgons would stop the attack.
Right, and we have Josh inquiring about how many spirits left do you have. Clearly Josh is thinking about end game here and how to secure this win.
And I'd imagine Josh is probably considering a Tsunami play here to be able to put that Toxeon into defense, make it easier. Oh, it's going to be the shield. That is a little bit of a rough answer for Toxeon specifically, as Toxeon effectively just ate 3 spirits out of Josh.
And can come back and burn for a whole other one this next turn if it wants.
Yeah, Josh, though, is able to develop, putting another spirit under his Stratagua, going to be able to recover back to water here. I imagine that if Adrian has a Gorgons, now has to be the time to fire it. It doesn't look like he does.
Right, the effect is going to be going through. Josh is healing back up. Hopefully Adrian has some kind of answer. As you were saying, it really feels like he's been put on the back foot here by Josh.
Yeah, a shield here could still basically take the same damage and take the Dratagua off the board, but then you have to worry about the Dratagua coming back down after the fact. We just saw him put back the water spirits, so Dratagua's effect would be live if it gets shielded back here, and there's really no other back row that can answer this particular push. I'd imagine, Adrian's going to be taking 3, meaning he's down to 4 spirits to BeanSoldier's 5. It is not looking good for Adrian here.
No, and we do know that Toxeon is there. We do know that Viscerus is still in hand, but we see 3 set over on Josh's side, and I imagine those have to be live. This is going to be a really tough board state to break.
And there goes the Earthquake. So that
there we go.
Yeah, so if Adrian's on a low amount of Earth there, I'd imagine that kind of just cleaned it up. But Adrian down to 2 spirits has to do something. There's the Ambrosia.
That is the something.
That absolutely is the something here. Ambrosia being able to put him back up to 4 total, as he will pay 1 for the Ambro.
Ooh, I saw him grab an Owloon there, which is very interesting.
Probably has a Spectaris lying in wait, if I had to guess, waiting to use it to try and answer out a whale that comes down. But there goes the Toxeon, once again burning for 1. That is actually going to be pretty substantial as we get into these lower spirit counts.
Yeah, we're getting close to the end of the game here. Josh did look at those set runes, is considering whether or not to answer here.
I imagine the Gorgons.
Yes, and here comes that Gorgons, as we were talking about last turn when the Toxeon came down.
Yeah, making sure that his rabbit stays up is absolutely critical here. And I'd imagine that means he probably doesn't have Tsunami set, as Tsunami kind of would accomplish a very similar goal in that regard, as well as making Toxeon easier to out in that regard. Adrian, though, with 3 back row, both players on 3 spirits, Adrian having the more aggressive Elestral on the board that can potentially just push for the game here. Josh looking like he's going to develop the crab once again.
Yeah, we see Moss Station come out.
And Moss Station is going to expend that water, so he will swap to a 6-1 here. Gonna put that rabbit into the fence just in case. Makes perfect sense. And going to attempt to swing the 6-1 over the Toxeon. Ooh. That's going to connect. That's terrifying. Not really what you want to see. Josh is down to 1 spirit, but Adrian has to be able to get over that rabbit, most likely. Unless he has another Toxeon, which is potential. Adrian does have the Ambro, though. Yeah,
that will keep Adrian in the game, be able to possibly fund any of these set runes that we're looking at. But I wonder if maybe one of them is Tsunami, because that wouldn't have answered the Moss Station. And Adrian is notorious for setting these cryoblasts as fake outs.
That's true, and it looks like he is looking at recovering that Fleur Mine. I have to imagine there is a cryoblast somewhere in the near future, or maybe something a little bit more interesting, maybe something like a Frostmite. But I also have to think, the more I'm thinking on it, I have to imagine Adrian probably actually sided out his Tsunamis, considering that he is going into a water-heavy deck, to where the Tsunamis actually just don't do a whole lot here.
That's true, unless we were looking at specifically defensive tsunamis. But you're right. Oh, yes, and there is that Cryoblast.
There is the Cryoblast, but the problem is that Cryoblast isn't going to be able to clean up anything. It's just going to be able to put something down to lower defense. And looks like he is going to develop the Viscerus. I think he might be trying to clear the Rabbit with this. Dropping the Rabbit to a 3 defense so Viscerus can swing over it. Josh being down to 1 Spirit means that the only potential answer he could have to this is Tsunami. Just not being able to do a whole lot beyond that outside of maybe siphoning off of his Mustache.
And with that, we do see the bunny go down. And as you said, with...
Oh, no, it was in his hand! The other disc was in his hand!
Oh, my... Well, that never
Yeah.
gets good, but this is regardless absolutely terrifying, especially with that mouse station and only 1 spirit not being able to possibly justify expending that 1 to bump it up to a 6/1.
If that is a water still in his spirit deck, too.
And we see a pass from Josh.
Oh, that is scary. Only having one spirit left, and it looks like that Viscerus that came out was misenchanted with a water by the looks of it, so that it would actually be able to punch through a Tsunami if that was on the table.
That was a very smart play for Adrian, playing around any possible outs that Josh might have. And it is looking like we might be in the end stages of this game. We could see Ambrosia, best card in the game, could buy us a few more turns for Josh.
Yeah, and Adrian also potentially looking for another copy of Cryoblast right now, as Cryoblast would drop Mustache's defense low enough for Viscerus to walk over it. As Viscerus is the one that's properly enchanted is currently sitting at 6 attack.
Yes, that is a huge Viscerus currently from the 2 on board. And we do see that Ambrosia for Josh, and I'm curious to see what he gets back. That will definitely inform. We see
3 waters.
3 water, okay. And we do know that he still has, I believe that Jatagua was pushed back to his hand. So
no, the Jatagua was answered via Earthquake, if I remember correctly.
That's true. When it had the 2 spirits, you're absolutely right there.
I think we were talking the potential of it being shielded.
Yeah.
But with that, Josh is going to set another back row. It looks like he's going to try to get aggressive here with his crab, bumping it back up to 6. But he can't really answer the big Viscerus, because if the big Viscerus is at 6, that means they would crash. And that is right. He is going to go for the defense position Viscerus instead. But now that big Viscerus is back down to a 5, meaning that there is the potential that he doesn't have the answer for it.
Yes, and Josh did get those water spirits back, so he does have the ability to, in this battle step, be able to pump his Mustache back up and be stronger than this Viscerus, which is only at 2, as we remember from our current ban list. So.
And there goes the Spectaris coming down. That is going to give Adrian another attacker to potentially out this. Josh not looking to take any kind of a swap here. He has to have something.
Tsunami,
and there is the Tsunami.
Mm-hmm.
That is something that would do it in fact, putting on all to defense mode there, except for the big crab.
Yes, that was absolutely a reason to target that water enchanted Viscerus last turn. And I have to assume that that's something that he was playing into.
Yeah, absolutely. It had to be. The water enchanted Viscerus had to be playing into the Tsunami there to try and give him some kind of an option to get an attack through.
And we are in a very sort of stalemate. Who's going to get the cards that they need? Who's going to be able to wrap up this game?
Yeah, both are down to 1 spirit. BeanSoldier looks like he's committing his last spirit to a misenchanted Spectaris. Oh my gosh, that does put him at a potential to clean up this game. But unfortunately, Mustache, correction there, is still only a 1 attacker. He has to go back to defense as Josh no longer has the spirit to expend for that swap. And it looks like he is going to walk the Spectaris over the Viscerus here.
And with it being misenchanted with water, there's really nothing that Adrian can do to answer it. He can't Tsunami. We simply have to possibly crash this next turn, but then Josh still has, and we see
that is another funny bunny, the Ash Rabbit, being able to potentially dig Adrian into his third copy of Ambrosia. That he would have to siphon it off of one of his Elestrals, but that would keep him in this game. Right now, it is kind of a stalemate, though. Both of them not really having a way to answer the other person's big defense body. Ash Rabbit with a 5 and Mustation with a 6. It is very difficult to get over those. And on top of that, Spectaris is here. Yes, the Spectarises can crash, but beyond that, how do you out these defense bodies when you don't have the spirits to do it?
Yeah, both players are just looking at huge defensive walls on either side. And you're right, it's going to come down to who sees Ambrosia, who can get an answer to this current stalemate board state.
And it looks like a tsunami is coming down. Josh paying off of his crab to put that thing back in defense. That is absolutely critical. Josh only having the one spirit under Spectaris left, and it is a water here. I imagine he's going to try to walk the Spectaris. Oh, actually, yeah, they wouldn't have crashed because Adrian Spectaris is in fact properly enchanted, but the Altar of Stars coming down. Oh no, that is absolutely devastating. Going to be able, I believe Adrian actually may have realized here that he doesn't actually have the spirit to cast.
Yeah, that's true. You have to pay to play it, and then you still have to have something to Nexus.
Well, he would be able to still do it if he paid off of one of his Elestrals and then Nexus to the spirit from the other one to set Elestral. It would be able to clean it up here, but I imagine, I don't know what's going on here. That Spectaris is should be in defense mode, if I'm not mistaken.
And we're both just staring at each other here. I have to wonder what conversation is being had right now.
I have no clue what is going on here. It looks like the altar is being played, which means that he would have to siphon it off of one of his Elestrals in order to cast it and then use it. So whoever it siphons off of is going to be the one that survives this play. So Spectaris paying it and then siphoning off for the altar, then nexusing from the bunny to the Spectaris to be able to put the other Spectaris into defense, and that is going to clean it up as Adrian can walk over at the following turn, and that means we are at 1-1. We are going to a game 3.
This is shaping up to be either a very quick game or a game that might potentially go to time.
I imagine with the way both of these players have been playing this, it probably will be going to time here. Josh starting us off here with a Galaxy, followed by a set and a pass. At least it's not the same Scorpion set pass that we've seen the last 2 games. But with that, Adrian immediately playing the answer in the Spectaris.
Yeah, here's that Spectaris that we've been talking about, being able to answer the whale. But we see a PTA come out. That gorgeous full-out PTA. Oh my goodness.
Absolutely gorgeous. But on top of that, that does mean that even though Josh is going to be able to stop this, answer the Spectaris long term, it is still going to be able to walk over the whale, as it'll go to 3 attack after it suppresses whale, meaning that Josh is still losing the whale and overall lost about 4 spirits total between the 1 under the whale, the 2 for the PTA. Oh no, just those 3, my bad, not 4. But still lost 3 spirits that turn to try and clean up the board state.
Yes, and although Adrian doesn't have any Elestral set currently, Josh was able to clear that. We do see 3 back row, which Crab coming out here, looking at 3 back row. Adrian thinking about his own PTA.
Oh, and that is actually absolutely massive, because not only will that answer the crab, that's going to make it to where the crab can't attack in, as the crab will only have 0 attack, meaning he'll do no damage.
That was the perfect answer for Adrian. And this seems like this is going to be a game where maybe it's going to be hard for either of these casters to get momentum, to get something to stick on the board.
Adrian going for the Viserys here. He's going to try to put some kind of momentum up here.
Well,
Even though Viserys isn't going to be able to connect its effect, it is still a 5 attacker that you do have to kind of deal with. And on top of that, crashing with it is not really an option, as the Viserys can still just put out another thing. But here comes the Eddie. That is a great answer for the Viserys here.
there's nothing Eddie can't do.
I'd imagine Adrian is considering that Gorgon's Gaze here. Yeah, that's exactly what he's going for. Stopping the Eddie from swapping the Visk to defense, keeping the Eddie from being able to clean up the board. And now, as like Josh sets a back row here, but if that back row can't stop this Visk, it might snowball absolutely out of control.
Yes, so it seems that there are some things, in fact, that Eddie cannot do, and that is get his effect off through a Gorgon's Gaze. And we do see one set for Josh, but Adrian is looking to get that momentum that we were talking about, and I imagine he's wanting to make this a quick game.
Yeah, Adrian went for the expend to draw there before moving to combat, but Josh dropping down the Tsunami, able to put that Viserys to defense. He says, I'm going to put that thing in defense whether you want me to or not, and absolutely just puts the Viserys as a sitting duck effectively. And if Josh is able to, Josh basically is, he's going to go for an expend to draw here.
We see an expend.
And kind of force Adrian to either have the shield or the second Gorgons to stop this, or he is losing this Viserys. And does he really want to commit that many spirits to one Viserys?
It seems he, in fact, does not want to, because Viserys goes down, and we pass back over to Adrian.
Absolutely interesting to see how this is going to play out. Adrian dropping the Galaxy, Josh having no back row behind him, unfortunately. So this one attack Eddie now is going to kind of have to deal with it. Oh, actually, did he just misenchant it with a Thunder? He misenchants it with a Zaptor. That makes it to where the Galaxy actually is not going to apply the attack swap. I have to imagine he's doing something here. I think that's an yeah, that's an Earthquake. Or Demeter. No, my mistake. Not an Earthquake. That is a Demeter.
Coming out?
I am absolutely gobsmacked, baffled. This is the Demeter is going to allow the Galaxy to walk over the Eddie here, and with a misenchantment on the Galaxy, that does mean that if Josh goes to play his own Galaxy, it will swap up to a 5/2. But I have to imagine Adrian here has to be setting up an Arcolith push.
Very potentially, and he's also playing around an answer that Josh has had in both of the previous games, which is the Moustation.
That is also very fair. But I think the Arcolith push might be because Adrian's looking at that clock. We're down to 6 minutes in the round, and Arcolith will allow you to put the spirits back on your board, which by time rules will put him up on spirits over BeanSoldier. You have to imagine that has to be something that's at least in the back of his mind.
Yes, you do have to always play to those outs, and the timer is, especially with just under 6 minutes.
Oh, the resting! Woo! The overcommission to the Demeter does come back to bite Adrian, as the resting is now able to just clean up the misenchanted Galaxy, as Josh now comes down with a properly enchanted one. But at the same time, Adrian asking the age-old question of whale arrow question mark.
Here comes the PTA.
Notably paying for the PTA's initial cost off of Demeter. So Demeter is now down to only one spirit on the board.
And like you say, with that possibly overcommitment, Adrian is now hurting for spirits with only 5 minutes left on the clock.
Absolutely. The Elestrals coming down. I imagine Adrian is also playing the Zeus, and there he is. has to have some other divine in the deck, with Demeter currently being limited. But I imagine he's desperately trying to find some way to get his spirit count up in case he's not going to be able to close out this game in the next 5 minutes.
Yeah, he's got to do something either.
Well, that'll do it.
Yep, that's the something again.
Yeah.
Ambrosia is always that something.
Paying for the Ambrosia off of the Demeter spirit so he doesn't have to commit more out of his spirit deck, which quite frankly is a lot safer now that he has the Zeus already in hand, as we know. So Ambro here going to be able to allow him to recover back up to 11, I think. Or maybe, I think they've already applied it, actually. that to where now Adrian is a good bit back in this game. That Ambro coming in absolutely clutch here.
Yes, we did see a Leviathan and 2 Taratlus coming back with that Ambro. So I have to wonder if either we're going to see an Earthquake at some point. Maybe we're going to see more Viscerous plays.
Well, I imagine it'd have to be an Earthquake, because with Viscerous already being in the discard pile, that means there's only one left in the deck. Eddie coming down here, going to try to put the Elechek to defense to walk over it. BeanSoldier is probably okay at this stage if Adrian commits back row, because as we said before, his spirit count is getting lower.
Yeah, and Adrian is really at this point having to prioritize having those spirits and bringing out the Ass Rabbit in attack, which is interesting. It makes me think that something's got to be happening here with this Eddie this turn.
I think Adrian, there has to be something.
Maybe that Earthquake that we were talking about might be coming out here.
Looks like a Cryoblast is going to follow that up. But I also would have to imagine he's also trying to bait attack position Elestrals for a potential Arcolith drop. But if not, this is still a really powerful push. Cleaning up Josh's board, putting him down to 8 spirits to Adrian's 7. Currently, we still have just under 3 minutes left in the round. So I imagine they have to be considering that it's down to the wire.
And we're gonna probably start to see them playing a little bit differently to take into consideration that clock. And Josh brings out an Ass Rabbit in attack of his own, going to be searching the top 3 of his deck. There was no answer, no Gorgons, no PTA, and Josh might be able to go in, possibly get Ambrosia, get anything that he wants from those top 3.
Yeah, you'd imagine that he has to be searching for the Ambrose at this stage just to kind of solidify his spirit line. But overall, it could be anything. Josh is going to be playing a Zeus of his own here, going to be able to use that to potentially clean up the rabbit as long as Adrian's back row doesn't have anything to say about it. He's going to drop that bunny to a 0-2 and try to walk over it. But if Adrian has Tsunami, then that's still an answer. If he has Shield, which I imagine there's the Shield.
There it is. We see that of Achilles.
That is an absolutely power play here. Puts Adrian tied with Josh's spirits at 5. But now Adrian, to an unanswered board, is dropping a Quackle to recover 3 Thunder. Oh no! Just absolutely killer here. He's going to go all the way back up to 7 spirits in his spirit deck, dropping BeanSoldier here down to 3. You have to imagine that if you're in Josh's position, you are starting to sweat just a little bit.
I mean, there is 1 minute left on the clock, so we are going into overtime, and Josh is getting aggressive with that Viscerous coming out.
Absolutely incredible Elestral to be seeing here specifically. I imagine he's going to try to walk over the bunny and eats another shield. And I think that's game. It's unfortunate. Josh is already down to 2 spirits. The Quackle and the rabbit on board cleaned that up.
I actually think that Adrian might be able to wrap this up in the time, which
he did. He absolutely did. Josh is scooping here.
There we go.